Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Thursday edition of the Tracy Show. My name is Tracy Carson, and of course, I'm the host of the Tracy Show. Before I let my guest introduce himself, I am going to pay a couple of bills here just to get things started. Please hit the subscribe button. I am up to 234. The goal is 300 by the end of May. So that's not far away. So if you could hit that subscribe button and notification button, you'll know when I'm going live. It costs nothing to subscribe. So again, hit the subscribe button, either follow that link, or if you see a subscribe button on your screen, just go ahead and hit that. Remember, we are also airing this show live on the website TRACYMediaLLC.com, where you can see this show live, but you can also see it here. And finally, I need your support on Patreon. I have one Patreon, and Patreon support starts at $2 per month. That's 50 cents a week. That money goes towards getting new lights, which I'm still saving to buy, and to make this program not have that annoying little duck in the corner. So any contribution is appreciated. So we are going to get started with the show by letting our guest introduce himself.
Well, hi, Tracy. Thank you for having me. My name's Ted Brown, and I'm the Libertarian Party candidate for U.S. Senator from Texas. And I am running against Ted Cruz, the Republican incumbent, and Colin Allred, the Democratic candidate.
Okay, so you're running for Senate.
Correct.
What's the one in Texas? He always runs for office. He's a Democrat. Um, he ran for president, then he ran for senator, then he ran for something.
Oh, you're thinking of Beto
Yes,
O'Rourke, I
that's what I'm
think.
thinking. I'm like, he's not running this time.
No, I think he blew it running for governor. That wasn't the right job for him in 2022. So I don't know what he's doing these days.
Well, I'm glad you could be here. Usually I start off with this question. You already told us what office you are running for. So, the first question, why not, well, if I could get my question out, why are you running for U.S. Senator?
Well, it's a very important position. Frankly, other libertarians weren't willing to do it, but I wanted to step up to the plate because it's an important position, and we definitely need a candidate to run against Ted Cruz. And in fact, every incumbent. There's a reason to oppose every incumbent in Washington, but Ted Cruz, who started out kind of strong as a Tea Party senator back in 2012, has kind of become a caricature. He's like a culture warrior, and he's getting in trouble for this podcast that he's making money from, though perhaps against Senate rules, and basically he just doesn't believe in freedom like a lot of people thought he did originally. And as a libertarian, I definitely believe in freedom, personal freedom, economic freedom, and a non-interventionist foreign policy, which you sure aren't going to get from the Democrats and Republicans. And so I figured I had to get into the race. It's for libertarians, it's the second biggest race after president that we're going to have a libertarian running in because of the size of Texas.
I was just about to ask that question because every state is different. Are you having to go through ballot access, or are you pretty much on the ballot?
I am now on the ballot. I was nominated by the Libertarian Party of Texas State Convention a couple weeks ago. So I am nominated. So I will be on the ballot. Just be three of us on the ballot, Cruz, Allred, and myself.
Okay, so I know you've heard this argument because it comes up every time a third party candidate runs. So in this case, you're going to be kind of the opposite. So a vote for you is going to be a vote for the Democrats. Because I'm assuming that well, no, let me backtrack this. So if someone votes for you, they're not voting for the people that can actually win, and that gives them a greater chance of winning.
Well, that becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. That's why they say, "Oh, you libertarians can't win, so I won't vote for you." Well, if they don't vote for us, how can we win? That's part of the problem. But I think the important thing is to have an alternative for the voters, because pretty much it's the same old deal from the Democrats and Republicans. They both want bigger government. They want to control our lives, just in different ways. And that's why there needs to be a libertarian out there. There's a certain number of people who are going to vote libertarian because they believe in what libertarians say, no matter who else is running. And so there's a certain group there. And other people that would vote libertarian, they've done polls, and it's a third, a third, and a third. If there's no libertarian on the ballot, those voters would vote either a third of them would vote Republican, a third would vote Democrat, and a third wouldn't even vote in that race at all. So it's nothing to assume that anybody that would consider voting for me would also consider voting for Cruz or Allred. It's a totally different system here. People who believe in liberty, and that's who I'm trying to reach and try to get them away from those parties, because those guys don't believe in liberty, and people need to vote what they believe in.
Now, when you say that's what always confuses me about the Libertarian Party. So when you say you believe in liberty, can
Mhm.
you explain? Can you expound on that?
Well, sure. What it means is that people should have the right to do whatever they want, as long as they're not violating the rights of other people, and as long as they take responsibility for their own actions. Basically, simply put, don't hurt people and don't take their stuff. And but the other parties have the opposite view. They have a plan to run your life. They know better rather than you, and that's why they pass all these laws. Then they appoint bureaucrats to pass even more regulations. And this is at the federal level, the state level, the local level, all levels. And the average person doesn't really have a chance there. They're just being deluged by government, when most people just want to be left alone. They don't need government to tell them what to do, and that's what libertarians want to do. In my case, I'm not running to be a lawmaker. I want to repeal as many laws as I can if I get in there. In fact, we could probably repeal 90% of all laws, and people wouldn't even notice. Because a lot of them are not what you think should be against the law, like murder, rape, burglary, fraud, these kind of things. It's a bunch of like paperwork offenses and victimless crimes and things that the government makes illegal, even though they don't. There's no victim, and people's rights aren't being violated. So I think what we need to do is to look at things from a different perspective. Have to the default should be government shouldn't be involved in things unless they have to really have a high bar to prove that the government should be involved in something.
I have to ask. Oh no, I'm gonna push that question down the road a little bit,
Hmm.
because it was one that popped in my head. Said no, not this is not the time to ask it. I'll definitely ask it, but I want to ask another question
Hmm.
first. So you talked about Ted Cruz.
Hmm.
Don't throw up, Tracy. And why he shouldn't be not elected. But I haven't heard you. I mean, I've heard you mention your Democratic opponent's name. Talk about, is it male or female?
Oh, it's a male, Colin
Okay.
Allred. He's a congressman from Dallas who used to be a professional football player, and he is someone who pretty much is just a drone of the party leadership. I don't think he hardly has ever voted away from the Democratic leadership in the House. He probably would faint if he had to read an economics book, and I just don't see much independent thinking at his end. And probably if he got to the Senate, he would do whatever Chuck Schumer told him to do. That's one thing about Ted Cruz. He's not really doesn't fall in line with the party leadership, but Allred seems to be someone that does that.
Okay, all right. I'm trying to think. I'm like, now what team did he play for? I'm thinking in my mind. It's like, okay, he played football. What team did he play for? Because that name is not ringing any bells.
It was a
Um.
while back and not for very long.
Okay. So he's in Congress now.
Yes.
So if he happens to win, which he probably won't, but if he happens to win, he has to vacate his seat because you
Yes.
can't. Obviously, okay. So now I'm getting this straight.
Hmm.
So, do you believe that there should be term limits for United States senators?
Yes, I do believe in term limits. I think that there's no right to govern, and I think the problem is once people get into office for long periods of time, they get all these contributions from special interest groups, and they build up these war chests, so nobody feels they have a chance to run against them. It's like a big wall is right there. Like for example, Republicans that don't like Ted Cruz, for example, none of them, no prominent Republican would ever try to challenge him because he just has so much money. And that's the case for just about every incumbent in every House and Senate race. So That's why it really has to be stop me from voting for that guy by by imposing term limits, because that's the way that you get new people in there, and you can't keep them for very long, because then the same thing would happen to them, where they become like controlled by the the corporate interests, the various special interest groups. It's like Robin Williams said years ago that the politicians should wear NASCAR style jackets that show their corporate sponsors on them, because that's what those guys have. And if they're there, the longer they're there, the more sponsors they have, and the more money they build up. So that's why I would put a two-term limit of 2 6-year terms on the Senate. Oh, and interestingly, Ted Cruz advocated that too in 2012. He ran on just serving 2 terms, and now he's coming to the end of 2 terms. And get this: this is the ultimate in hypocrisy. He introduced a constitutional amendment to makes the Senate only serve 2 terms. At the same time, he was filing for a third term himself. It just defies any credibility. The guy just is just posturing. He just is not serious about his job there. And he said he was served 2 terms. He should be out. He should leave office.
Do they really mean that though? I mean, the only one that has a term limit is the president and the vice president. That's it. Congress has no term limit. The U.S. Senate has no term limit. You could literally get in there. You could start out, and
Mm-hmm.
this is going to be a question. I promise it's going to be a
Yeah.
question. You start out, the average salary of the United States, well, that's Congress, but I'll still make my point anyway. The starting salary for a United States congressperson is $174,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
Why are they millionaires? Like, why are they? I'm like, nobody said, like, people, it seems like people complain about this,
Mm-hmm.
but they won't vote for somebody that says, okay, this is wrong. It's like people expect
Yeah.
that this is the way the game is played.
It seems that way. It seems that way. That's why someone just created an app to track congressmen's stock trades and say we will trade the same way the congressmen do, because they get all this insider knowledge because of congressional hearings, just what they hear on Capitol Hill, and they're not governed by the insider trading laws like everybody else is. And I think that's how a lot of people make money. Nancy Pelosi apparently is quite wealthy that way. The one that got me, there's a former senator named Kelly Loeffler from Georgia, whose husband's head of the New York Stock Exchange. She went to some hearing just before COVID popped up, and she heard all about it in the hearing. And she went out and bought a pile of Zoom stock and made a fortune, because she knew that something was up, and the people would have to be not out in public, and they'd be communicating by Zoom. So she had that insider knowledge. She shouldn't be able to trade on that, just like I can't and you can't. But this is like a special elite group, and that's what upset people, and rightly so.
Well, this is where I'm getting at, though, because the average person says there's too much money in politics.
Hmm.
I would ask you, as a candidate, how do you tell those people stop voting for them then?
Well, the problem is right now, well, they've been voting that way for a long time, but now it's even worse. There's this tribal voting. Like you're a member of the Democratic tribe or the Republican tribe, and no matter how bad the candidate is, it seems like people will still go for it. So, I mean, they would probably vote for their candidate whether the person spent any money or not if they just see that D or the R after their name. In fact, there was a poll in my race where I polled at 4%, and the but on for Cruz and Allred, 94% of Cruz voters and 93% of Allred voters said there's no way to change their mind. Just they're voting for those guys just because they're the D and the R. Because I can't imagine those are their favorite candidates, but they're just going to vote that way because it's sort of like their favorite sports team, and that's not how people should vote. They should be voting for who's going to look after their interests, and who's going to stop government from violating people's rights. And they sure don't look at that. It's just that D and R, unfortunately.
And that's part of the reason I started this show, because I think, as a person that supports third party or alternative party candidates, it's very frustrating for people. You see people vote the same way, the same way, the same way,
Yeah,
complain, but they won't vote different. And I'm always trying to get to, um, why won't you vote different?
I know. It's exactly
You, nobody's gonna know that you didn't vote for them.
exactly.
Nobody's gonna come after you. But it seems people are stuck vote. It's like they don't realize, no, I don't have to vote for the Democrat and I don't
No.
have to vote for the Republican. I could vote Libertarian, Green, Justice
Yeah.
for All. I could vote
Hmm.
PSL. I could vote anything.
Sure. Exactly. Exactly right. And they just need to do that. Now, I can see people might, for president or for governor, something where the person's going to have a lot of executive powers and everything, that they might worry about electing someone from an alternative party. But if you're talking about the U.S. House, for example, there's 435 of those guys. I mean, if you elect a few libertarians and a few Greens, I mean, they can't wreck things too badly with a large body like that. The same with the state legislature. Like, for example, in Texas, there's 150 members in the state house. Electing a few libertarians, how can that mess things up too badly? Give us a chance. I mean, that's the thing. Just let us in there. And in systems like parliamentary systems where there's like proportional representation, where free market and libertarian style parties get in there, they show they can do the job, and people will vote more for that party, and they'll have more representation. In fact, in New Zealand, I think it is, a libertarian style party actually got into the government because they had enough seats, and they formed a coalition with one of the winning parties to do that. And by virtue of getting into office, hopefully they'll be able to show that they can do the work and maybe do a lot better the next time.
We can't even get ranked choice voting.
No.
So no, let me backtrack. It's in two states. I apologize. It's in two states,
Yes.
Alaska and Maine. I think
Yes.
I know Alaska. Not sure about Maine.
Yeah, they have it.
But it's always frustrated me when I hear people just
Hmm.
complain about how politicians take too much money. I'm like, well, vote for somebody that's not those two parties. And I'm like, oh no, we have to win. Well, no, that's winning. Winning is the primary thing. I understand that.
Yeah.
But to vote for a candidate because you simply think he or she can win, I don't know. And here comes my question. I don't know how you, as a politician, get around that to a person that you're trying to convince to vote
Mm.
for you, how your team does that. Are there engagement events that you have? Is there
Mm.
press? I'm pretty sure the press coverage is not what you would like it to be.
No.
But what type of methods are you using besides social media?
Well, not much else at present. We have to try to get as much free media as possible because again, I'm not offering any kind of like anything special interest would want. I'm not going to give them subsidies. I'm not, nothing they really want is what they from a libertarian. Because I'm going to like cut off the till there for anyone who's getting corporate welfare or whatever. So, but people should be supporting libertarians because at least people that don't want the government on their back, people who believe in, say, for example, ending marijuana prohibition, or people who don't want gun laws. There's just so many different subject matters where we would just like wipe the books clean from, from so many laws. And but the public, certainly one of the problems is a lot of people don't even know. It's hard to get the word out because a very small number of people really know what we believe in. Other people know the name but don't know what we believe in, and the vast majority of voters, unfortunately, haven't even heard of the Libertarian Party or the Green Party, though you can from the name kind of tell what that one's about. And certainly any other third party besides the two of us, those two parties are way down there. I barely have heard of some of the other ones besides libertarians and Greens. So it's very difficult. The public, most people are not interested in politics at all until like August or September of election year, and by then. The Democrats and Republicans have had their primaries, and their most fanatical voters have gotten out and selected the candidates. So you have the most culture war Republican and the most woke Democrat running against each other, neither of whom probably most of the public want, but there's that tribe. They have the
Wait
D
a
and the
minute.
R.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Did you call Joe Biden woke? Because he's not woke.
No, he's not. He's not. But I'm thinking of like, say, for example, in smaller races, like in state legislative
Oh, okay. I'm like,
primaries and
did
things
he
like
call
that.
Joe Biden woke? No, he's not. He's asleep. That's his problem. He always looks sleepy. I'm
Yeah.
like, go to take a nap. You look sleepy. But
Yeah. He lets the woke people sort of run roughshod over his administration, though. He doesn't really want to offend them, it seems.
I do have to ask this question because you are in Texas. And I know that the the migrant crisis. I'm not even going to call it a crisis because I don't believe it is, but the media calls it a migrant crisis.
Mm-hmm.
What would be your um, solution in terms of addressing the immigration situation?
Oh, it's just amazing how that's been. There's this moral panic, this panic about immigrants in Texas, and everybody thinks that we're being invaded, and it's ridiculous. The problem is not with the migrants; it's with the immigration system. I'm very pro-immigration. I love immigrants. Both of my grandfathers were immigrants, and I do welcome people to come here who are looking for a better life. And they certainly shouldn't have to be swimming across a river and climbing over walls and climbing through barbed wire and concentrating themselves in fields near these small towns in South Texas. I mean, if you want to come here, you should be able to use a paved road, walk up to a building that has U.S. government employees in it, and sign in. They shouldn't be swimming across the river. But the problem is, they aren't allowed to go to regular border checkpoints. They should be allowed to go to any point of entry at any airport, any port, anywhere that there are U.S. immigration agents where they could just sign in and be processed that way. And I favor an Ellis Island style of immigration where people don't have to get permission to come. They just come. If they're found not to be criminals or have a communicable disease, they should be let in. And there's a big backlog even of legal immigrants. There's millions of people that have applied legally under the current system. Their applications are being ignored. There's like decades of backlog. They probably either given up, died, or come across the way that people are coming across now to because they haven't been able to get an answer to their legitimate legal applications. So what we need is to change that. I welcome people, but they need, of course, to sign in, and then we'll know who they are, and they should be allowed to work immediately. There shouldn't be any of this like work permits or anything like that. And in that case, they wouldn't need all these programs, these government programs that people complain about that immigrants are on, because they should be able to work. They're on these programs because they're not allowed to work. So the whole system is totally screwed up, and that's what has to be changed. Not just declare something an invasion and arrest people for coming across the border. You got to change. You got to change the whole system, and
Yeah,
that's really hard to do.
because that's definitely an issue in the Senate,
Hmm.
and I find that it's so political. It's it's such a distractionary tool.
Hmm.
So instead of coming up with common sense solutions, i.e., just let them in and have them go to a checkpoint, they use it to scare Americans. And you
Oh
have
yeah.
people saying, "Oh, they're taking jobs and they're doing this or
Hmm.
doing that." And I'm like, well, what jobs are you talking about? There are no jobs.
Hmm. And they're not allowed to
Company,
take the jobs because they have to
well,
like wait years till they get a work permit.
there's no jobs to take.
Hmm.
I mean, if you look at the unemployment, there's massive layoffs going on. So I'm like, well, what jobs are they taking? Because I don't see them. But I wanted to talk about when you're in the Senate, and I always say when because I'm just always going to assume that the person I'm talking to is
Hmm.
going to win. There is this thing in the Senate called the filibuster,
Yes, yes.
and it has been used by the Democrats in general as an excuse not to do things that would make sense for the American people, i.e., um, and you as a libertarian may not agree with this, but me as a leftist, I say expand the child tax credit. Let the parents who are going to get the tax credit get it monthly instead of just waiting till quote unquote tax time to get it. Um, Other things like this where they use the filibuster as an excuse and they use it as a shield, or Joe Biden using the parliamentarian as an excuse not to do anything. How would you? Oh, I can barely hear. I can't hear you. I see you, but I can't hear you. Nope, I still can't hear you. You might have to go out and come back in because I can't hear you. Nope, my headphones are in and my microphone is working. I can't hear you. I still can't hear you. So what I'm going to do is take you down and then come back in. Maybe that'll help. Because I can't hear anything that you're saying. Let's see. So we're having some technical difficulties. I'm hoping everyone can hear me. If you can hear me, put Tracy, I can hear you in the comments and see will that work. Let's try this and it'll be just a second here. Okay, so my microphone is working. Nope, I still can't hear you. I am still having problems hearing you. And I just tested my microphone and mine is fine. Now you're on mute. Now you're not on mute, but I still can't hear you. I can't hear you. Like I said, remove yourself and then come back in, and maybe that'll work. Because obviously he could hear me, I just can't hear him. So like I said, while he's doing that, it amazes me how again people complain about how much money politicians take that they're selling out, but yet and still they'll go vote for the same people. And we've got to vote different to get different. Until we vote these people out, we're never gonna get, we're gonna always be in this circle where we're and now can you speak?
Yes, can you
Okay,
hear me
now
now?
I can hear you.
Good, it's
Yes.
back. Yay.
Okay. So I was asking about the filibuster and how would you deal with that as a libertarian and two as a US senator?
Well, I would certainly try to filibuster legislation because that does work sometimes. I know Senator Rand Paul does that sometimes because he's like sort of off on his own on a lot of subjects. Some of the ones I agree with him on, where he's opposed to privacy issues or people's privacy being violated and things like that. So I certainly would join him in that. And really, it'd be better to have more than one person because if you really are going to take the floor and not give it up, it's tough to not eat or sleep or go to the bathroom or whatever. They make it very difficult to do that. And I know that senators in the past have gone on for, hours and hours. But on some of these issues where like Democrats and Republicans often agree, where they just want to violate people's rights, they're just going to cut off the filibuster real quick. As long as they have 60 votes, they can cut off the filibuster. And I'm guessing that a lot of what I believe in is not going to get the support of 41 senators, unfortunately. So most I can do is one thing. What's really strange is I have to check all the Senate rules because if you remember how Senator Tuberville was like putting the hold on all those military appointments, I couldn't understand how one senator could do that. And I've heard that senators can put holds on legislation like individual senators. So it sounds weird that they can actually do that, but I will make sure to do that sort of thing, like putting holds on legislation or nominees that are people that are known to violate people's rights and things like that as much as possible before being outvoted or whatever. But I would have a bully pulpit to the public to let them know that all this is going on. Unlike all the senators just go along with the crowd, I will actually talk to the public and tell them what's being done to them and try to make a big to do out of it. So at least trying to get attention that way for this alternative point of view. Let people know there's an alternative instead of just everybody going along with the same big government attitude there.
Now here you're talking about the filibuster in the old school sense. I'm talking about it in the well, we're not in power, so we're just not gonna vote 60, even though it's something that, like I said, I'm a leftist, so I'm all for expanding the social safety net. Even though it's something that would help people. You'll have 40 what, there's 51, no, there's 50 Republican United States senators.
Right, 51
And they will
Republicans right now. Yeah.
yeah,
But
51.
Yeah,
No, it's 51 because if you count Kamala Harris, she's the tiebreaker. So I
that's
think
for the
it's,
Democrats. Yeah, the Democrats are in charge because of that. Yeah.
yeah. So if it seems to me like either side, they'll vote opposite because they're not in power.
Mm.
Or it's like the Republicans will say, oh, well, we're not going to vote for it, even though one, it was their idea.
Yes. Yes.
Or they're just being super, well, that is super petty.
Hmm.
That's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about the filibuster.
They are petty. They're terribly petty, and I'll work with either side depending on the issue if there's some common ground. Because my goal is to actually get something done to like that makes sense to help the American people and to save them from big government. And if there's some Democrats that want to do that on some issues and some Republicans on other issues, I'll be glad to work with them. I don't care about party label. I just care about getting results.
Now, here's a question I have to ask because there are three independents, so-called independents in the Senate. There's Bernie Sanders and the other two. I forget what their names are, but they caucus
Hmm.
with either party. Would you be willing to do that, or are you just like absolutely positively not?
Well, they both, all three of them caucus with the Democrats, and they really are Democrats in their views. I mean, it's really funny. Bernie even ran for the Democratic presidential nomination. Here he says he's not a Democrat. I mean, that's kind of crazy, isn't it? So, well, it'd be great if there was more than one libertarian. Then we could form our own caucus. That would be great. Have like two minority parties in the Senate, whichever one, either the D's or R's, whichever one is not doesn't have. The leading number or the majority of the Senate. Well, it'd be great to be the balance of power, and then I could decide which party ran the Senate. So that would be interesting. But again, I hadn't planned to caucus with either side, but I would work with senators from both sides.
Okay, and here's another point that I forgot to make. So the two sides, they only pretend to be enemies on TV. They really do. Like, if people really looked at
Yeah.
how the government is funded,
Hmm.
I have never. Oh, wait a minute. I got an issue with my plug. Let me plug this up before this gives out. Um, I cannot understand if the two parties are supposedly so different.
Hmm.
I've never seen any congressman ever veto or vote against increasing the military's budget.
Exactly.
I have never seen it.
Hmm.
I've never seen a battle. I've never seen um like somebody had to pick on Bernie again,
Hmm.
who talks about he's against wars, but I'm like, okay, you're funding to increase the but it's like I wish people could see that they only pretend to be enemies on TV.
Exactly.
They vote
Exactly.
exactly the same. They raise the same. They raise um, taxes.
Yeah.
Although I'm one, I do think the higher income earners need to be paying their share because it's the lower class and middle class that are getting taxed at a higher rate than anyone. But it's amazing how they vote so similar that if
Yes.
you take off their names, you can't tell which one voted for which thing because it's like they're just in lockstep.
That's pretty much the case, except if you go to the extreme left and the extreme right, and they sometimes come together on some of the same bills to vote against them. But it's a very small number total, like 50, 60, 70 members out of the whole Congress that do that. So, of course, I'd probably be part of a part of that bunch. But yeah, you're right about the military budget. The only thing they can agree on is to vote to bomb the heck out of brown people in other countries. That's about and the justification, I think the military and the military contractors have actually arranged this over the years, where there are military contracts and military bases, military contracts in every state and almost every congressional district. So it's like they're sharing the wealth on that. And it's like everybody has their piece of the pie. No one is going to say, "Oh, I want my district to no longer have, the manufacturing this widget for this missile or something." because it's jobs. It's jobs in the district, and these members of Congress are sent to bring home the bacon. But they don't look at the big picture because, again, they think they might be run out of office. But yet, it's very hard to run them out of office, like we talked about before, because of their large war chest. So, even if they did vote to get rid of the military contract, they'd probably still be reelected. They don't think so, though, and they just keep and these military contractors keep sending the contributions too, like Raytheon and GE and all these different military contractors. So it just goes on and on and on. And only the third parties, libertarians and Greens, want to cut the military budget.
Exactly. And here's another thing I will say, and you said, I mean, you literally just said it, but I think about how can I phrase this question where it's going to make sense. You hear politicians, and it's on both sides. Like I said, they only pretend to be enemies on TV.
Mm-hmm.
You'll hear them say, oh, well, money shouldn't play any role. But if I'm the corporations giving this money, and I always make this point to third party candidates,
Mm-hmm.
especially, why would I want it to stop? I'm giving this little bit of money and I'm getting $1 billion contracts.
They sure do.
There's no downside for a corporation. Now, there's a downside for me and you and regular people,
Oh
but
yeah.
there's no downside for corporations.
That's right. That's why corporate influence really needs to be dissipated there in Congress, and it's very hard to do that because again, just like you said, they give all those contributions, and the same people are in there year after year because they have all those contributions. Because no one's going to get them out of there because they have all the money, and so it's I don't want to say it's hopeless, but we really have to clean house there, and it's up to the voters to do that. They've got to just vote for the person they never heard of sometime and try to clean house, vote against the incumbents, and especially vote against the major parties. Because I mean, look what they've done to us.
Yep, I definitely agree because until we vote different, and I
Hmm.
said this while you were getting back on the air, until we vote different, we're going to keep getting the same thing, and it's only going to get worse and worse and worse. Our military budget is going to be um, just, if it doesn't hit $1 trillion, I would be very shocked.
Oh yeah, Congress
Um,
passes more military appropriations than the Pentagon even asks for
yeah,
sometimes.
the Pentagon has
Yeah.
asked for little money, or not little money, but they've asked for one thing, but they've got more.
Yeah, and then
And
they can't
I'm
even pass an audit. I mean, no one even knows where that money goes. It just sounds good to have all this military spending, and these guys don't know. They can't even figure out where the money went. It's probably like hundreds of millions every year or hundreds of billions every year is just wasted somewhere, or it's in some like metal suitcase with the cash that's being paid off to somebody. It's what it seems like.
Yep. So back to your campaign. Now I'm going to come back and for these next series of questions, I'm going to ask for your campaign. Are you a self-funded candidate or do you have a team of volunteers?
Well, those are two slightly different things. I have not been able to spend too much money on the campaign so far. There was a $5,000 filing fee. I raised quite a bit of that and then paid the rest myself. I'm still getting contributions, but it's all small contributions from individuals that believe in freedom, and still not enough. I mean, Cruz apparently has 400,000 individual donors, and All Red like 300,000 individual donors. So if your listeners can ask 100,000 of their closest friends to contribute to the campaign, that would be excellent. But really, it just really depends on how much we can raise as to where we will go with that, as to how much we can do. And no, I don't have a lot of volunteers yet. I mean, I've just been seeking out volunteers. I've gotten people who want to work on social media and on making videos and things like that. I need people to help me with scheduling. Like to try to get on as much free media as possible, like radio talk shows in Texas, that sort of thing. And so, if your listeners are interested in helping, they could go to tedbrown.org, or they can contact me on Facebook or Twitter as well. So I really do need volunteers. If anybody's appreciating what I'm saying, please sign up.
Yeah, because those volunteers are very, very, very critical.
Hmm.
Especially, I live in a smaller state. Certainly nowhere near the size of Texas. I can
Hmm.
only imagine like the mileage you have to cover, the territory you have to cover. Um,
That's right. I can't even meet that many people really in a big race like this. And that's why trying to get into the media where you reach like a lot of people at the same time is really important because, just individually, I can't meet that many voters for a race like this in Texas. I need to get out there on the internet and on the airwaves.
and here that was going to be my next question. How responsive? I know the answer to this question. I already know the answer, but I want you to talk about it. How responsive has, and I'm going to say the local media. Yeah, I'll say the local media in Texas. How responsive have they been?
None, no media except until today. I heard from the Amarillo Pioneer, which is a small city newspaper, and they have often been uh, helpful and no, actually not helpful. I would say they have recognized libertarian candidates in the past and covered our campaigns. And someone from there just called me today and wanted to find out about the campaign and such. So I appreciate the Amarillo Pioneer, and I would love other newspapers, radio stations. TV stations, et cetera, to be calling. I do need more volunteers to actually put out press releases and to make them more aware of the campaign because they can certainly look up that I'm running. I'm with on the FEC reports or whatever, and with the Secretary of State's office. But it's tough. I mean, I don't have ads out there, and I'm not everywhere at once like the Democrats and Republicans are because of all the millions of dollars they all have.
You just brought up another good point about money in politics. We don't have publicly financed elections.
Well,
Message.
I wouldn't favor that because I mean
I know. I'm making a larger point here
yeah.
because we can both agree that corporations dictating who gets elected office is a terrible thing.
Hmm.
I personally believe in publicly financed elections. I know you don't.
Hmm.
However, until we get to the point where I know Joe Biden says he's against Citizens United, but never says, "Oh, I don't want corporate money." Like he doesn't realize he can do that, but
Hmm.
I guess he doesn't know. Yeah, Joe, you can actually not take corporate
Sure.
PAC money. I mean, literally, nobody can stop you. You can literally not take corporate money. But
Absolutely.
until we get to that point, I don't think people realize how much it costs to run for office.
Oh,
Even,
amazing.
I mean, I'm working in a campaign now, and I'm like, "Are you serious?" I'm not running, but I, I'm flabbergasted at how much it actually costs,
Oh, yeah.
and people don't realize that. Um, and it's a hard ask. It's like, especially with the way the economy is, if you're depending on small dollar donors.
Yeah.
They have gas, they have food, they have rent, they have mortgage, they have clothes, they have
Hmm.
utilities, they have all of this. And now I'm supposed to give this candidate who's going to run against Ted Cruz, as much as I dislike him. I'm saying this as the
Right.
voter in Texas. I know his name. Well, maybe most people in Texas don't know Ted Cruz.
Well, I think a lot of people know Ted Cruz. He's kind of notorious, and
Well,
that.
okay, yeah, that's right. Because I forgot he made national news when he went on vacation during the
Yeah. And,
um
and
oh
the freeze, like
yes, you
three
all have
three
that
years ago.
freeze, and he decided, oh, and then he left his dog in the house. I'm like, why are you all electing this man?
Oh, some of these guys are just
Really?
totally tone deaf. Like when Mitt Romney took a vacation, had his dog on the car carrier up on the roof of the car while they were driving down the highway. These guys, no one, you don't want somebody to mistreat their dog and be an honest. But you're right about Ted Cruz, and that's why by my name being Ted, also we're using a theme like the better Ted or the Ted that stayed versus the Ted that left, or Bill of Rights Ted versus Loss of Rights Ted. A play on the names I think might help get a little bit of attention also because having the same first name might make people more noticing the campaign.
And I already know this answer to this next question. The debates. Are you invited or not invited?
Well, there's been no word that there are any debates yet. We'll probably hear about that like this summer sometime. Whether Cruz will even acknowledge Allred to debate him, because sometimes the incumbents say, "Well, why should I give this forum to the challenger?" I'm doing so well in the polls. Why should I let this guy, try to trip me up or something? So, well, will they have a debate? Probably at least one. I'm predicting they'll have like one or two debates. It's more than likely that they will, but they're not going to invite me. The It'd be nice if they did. That would really shock the the media and the general public. But I would certainly try to have supporters outside wherever they're holding the debate and have like a demonstration of some kind. I can have someone videotape me answering the same questions and put that up on, split screen or something like that to answer the same questions so people could see what my answers are either at the same time or soon thereafter to those questions. So I'm going to answer the questions, just a matter of who's going to see it and when.
Yeah, and as a United States senator, again, you're dealing with what congressional races. President, the presidential election is decided by the Electoral College,
Yes,
and the congressional seats are mostly gerrymandered.
yes,
That's just a fact of life. So the United States Senate remains the only race where the people actually get to say, "This is who I want."
pretty much. And that's the case.
Um,
There's a lot of competitive Senate races this year. Well,
yes, and
several of them: Montana, Ohio, Nevada. There's a few of them out there, and so you never know what's going to happen.
that was what my point was going to be. And so when you're recruiting volunteers, you didn't say anything about a campaign manager, so I'm going to assume you don't have one.
I am looking for one. I would very much love to have one, or at least someone to be scheduling me and such. Yes.
Okay, so um, like here comes my little advice. Um, I know C-SPAN, and I don't know why I never thought of it. C-SPAN is always interviewing people. Always,
Hmm.
always. Doesn't even matter where it is. I don't know what criteria you have to meet, who you have to contact. I have no idea.
Right.
But I know that they do interview third party candidates. Um,
I don't know about that. I mean, they might have our presidential candidate on sometime, and we're going to know
no,
who that is in about a month.
I've seen a couple of Congress people here lately that are independents on there.
I'm not sure how independent they really are. They're probably like pretty close to being a Democrat or Republican or caucus with them, the same as like Senator.
Well, here's what
Uh,
I'll
you know,
say: they are running as a Democrat, and they're
yeah.
not running as a Republican. Um,
Well, you might talk about like Robert F. Kennedy Jr., for example. He's
oh
running
no,
as
he doesn't count because he's definitely a Democrat.
yeah.
He's definitely a Democrat.
Hmm. And then the same with Cornell West. He's another independent candidate. And well, actually, the biggies are Kennedy, Cornell West, Jill Stein for the Greens, and then whoever our candidate is, and we'll know that in about a month.
That's right. That's what I was going to ask. Is your convention is next month, but the state of Texas has already had their nomination committee because they nominated you.
Correct, correct, yes.
Okay,
And we
okay.
had some of the presidential candidates at our Texas convention debating, like four of them were there debating. Really great crop of candidates. They actually believe in freedom and can articulate that so well. And I wish the public could all see the libertarian presidential candidates debating because they actually might hear something worthwhile rather than what Trump and Biden say, which is a bunch of garbage and garbled besides.
And here comes another question about our current president and Trump,
Hmm.
because he's not president yet at all. I hope, but
Oh, hopefully not.
hopefully not. When a United States senator is, and I say Congress because they're all Congress. You either have the
Hmm.
Senate, you have Congress,
Right.
but they're all to me. When I say Congress, I'm talking about both
Hmm.
places.
Yeah.
In case anybody had any questions, when you're how can I phrase this question? When a microphone is put to your face and you are asked a question about a president, knowing that you believe that both are clowns, knowing that you believe that, well, no, I'm going to rephrase this question. If you could have a conversation with Donald Trump, what would you say to him?
Oh my God. Oh my
And you're
God.
in this scenario, you are a United States senator,
Oh,
and somehow I'm just assuming he's president.
Oh, okay. In that case, if you're assuming I'm a senator, I mean, I thought you meant like right now as a
No, not
citizen.
right now. No,
Yeah.
not right now. I think I know what you would say to him right now, but I'm saying if he were president and if you were senator, what would you say to him that your state needs?
Oh, I wouldn't use the terms about what my state needs like that, like trying to bring home the bacon or anything like that. I don't favor bringing all these projects to the state or anything of that sort. What I would talk to him about would be like whatever issue it was going on at that time where I could promote liberty, like make suggestions to him about policy, because he sometimes I've heard listens to the last person he talks to. In fact, one time he played golf with Senator Rand Paul, and the senator actually urged him to do some sort of free market healthcare thing that was kind of minor, but he did it immediately because that's what he just heard out on the golf links there. So if I could get to him to maybe pardon a bunch of people who are in prison for victimless crimes or something like that, just something to stoke his that interests him, because he's only interested in Donald Trump, so, and a short attention span. So whatever can get him maybe to promote something properly or correctly just by suggesting it to him.
Okay. If you give, I'll give you this and ask you to be a tad bit more specific. The issue in terms of funding military endeavors, i.e., Gaza, i.e., Ukraine, Somalia, Congo, etc. I'll
Oh my
make.
God, those are quite different. In general, my general view is I don't believe that the U.S. should be giving foreign aid to other countries. There's no constitutional authority for that, and I just think it's really messed up. We stick our nose where it doesn't belong. But if you talk about Israel and Gaza, that is just that situation. I'm a Jewish American. I would love to be supporting Israel, but I just can't because of the way they're treating the people in Gaza. Sure, there was a terrible attack by Hamas, but you don't. I don't believe. I believe in self-defense, but I don't believe in over-the-top, disproportionate self-defense, and that's what they're doing over there. They're just bombing the heck out of a bunch of pretty much innocent civilians, women, children. They've killed what, over 30,000 people, half of them children. They've blown up all their homes. Like half the population is homeless. There's not enough food. There's going to be a famine there. That's just totally ridiculous. I mean, and they can do what they want, but I don't want them to do it with my tax dollars. That's and the U.S. has been backing them and not telling them, hey, you can't keep doing this. We're going to cut off all your military aid. Biden just refuses to do that. He says, he just keeps threatening Netanyahu, but he won't do anything. Biden has been firmly committed to backing Israel for decades. And so, he's just going to let the Israelis get away with whatever they can over there. And what they're doing is they're engaged in major human rights violations, war crimes even, and crimes against humanity over there against the Gazans. And I just cannot go for that. I would cut off all military aid to Israel because of that. They're killing kids. Come on. I mean, we can't support that. And then if you listen to the mainstream media, if you listen to the Democratic Party leaders, the Republican Party leaders, there's some kind of a script. They read the exact same script. Even Bill Maher, who's someone I like on TV, was reading from the same script about, well, Hamas is, they embed themselves amongst these civilians. Well, sure, that's actually a really good strategy, but that doesn't mean just kill everybody in sight. These people are suffering too. They're being abused by their own leaders, which is the Hamas leaders. So yeah, I just can't go for that. I would not vote. In fact, I would have voted against this current bill that was just passed for all the aid. Interestingly, Ted Cruz voted against it, but for totally different reasons. So I applaud him for voting against it, but it's for different reasons. As for Ukraine, the problem started long, long before Putin attacked Ukraine. And this is the problem about NATO expanding to the borders of the former Soviet Union and having military bases and Western military near Russia. And they did not want Ukraine to be a member of NATO, but Ukraine kept angling to become part of NATO. And if they would have only said they weren't going to or didn't want to, then I'm thinking that the invasion might never have happened, and they should have been told. Ukraine should have been told, nope, you're not getting into NATO. We're not getting into that. They should be a neutral country. And so Russia is engaged in some terrible atrocities over there. Same thing, they're engaged in war crimes, they're engaged in crimes against humanity. Um, but what can we do exactly without getting into a nuclear war of some kind? The more we push, I just don't see how Ukraine can win this. And there's going to have to be a negotiated settlement of some kind. But the U.S. has refused to even allow negotiations to begin. Near the beginning, it would have been the better time to do that. And in fact, a lot of leaders, different leaders from around the world, I think Boris Johnson from England and some other leaders approached the parties about having a peace conference, and they certainly would have liked it. Neither side really probably wants to be blowing each other to smithereens like that. But the U.S. Put a quash on that. So this just can't keep going on like this. There has to be a negotiated settlement.
I think you've answered both Biden and Trump in the same answer, so I'm not going to ask you about Biden. But I will switch up the question in this way. So right now, you as Ted Brown, not United States Senator,
Uh-huh.
you have a conversation with Joe Biden. What is the one thing that you would tell him?
Sir, would you like to take my arm so I can help you into your chair? No, it's like he seems like he's not very not all there, and he's kind of kind of feeble and everything. But I would certainly just urge him to support personal freedom and economic freedom. I just don't think he's going to do that. One thing that he's like on the verge of doing, but he just doesn't really want to get there, and that is to end marijuana prohibition. That's one item where the DEA is now talking about changing the scheduling of cannabis, of marijuana. Biden says he wants that, but he's been one of the biggest drug warriors in history. He's passed some of the worst drug laws in history and put the most people in prison than any other senator. He talks about pardoning people, and he does it here and there, a few people. But if I could talk to him, I would push him to pardon thousands and thousands of people who have been victims of these unjust drug laws over the years. And I think that's one that he knows that that's where the tide is turning, and he might actually listen to me on that versus any of the real big juicy issues that are coming around.
I think that's a good point that you made. Um, Second to last question. Um, pardon me. Um, I live in Texas. I don't, but I live in Texas. Tell me why as someone, I don't know if I'm socialist, leftist, or Marxist, someone to the left of where the Libertarian Party stands, why should I vote for you?
Frankly, I would say that I'm to the left of the most leftist on social issues. I would say since I believe in personal freedom across the board, I'll challenge any leftist to a on viewpoint on that. They could absolutely trust the libertarian and no one else to stand up for their personal freedoms in at all levels of government. They're going to be just thrown under the bus by the Democrats on these civil liberties issues as soon as the Democrats see that there's no benefit to getting contributions or whatever on those. So I would say to people on the left, you might disagree with me on economic issues. You probably will. But on every other issue, on social issues, on your personal freedoms, your civil liberties, foreign policy, even, I'm the guy because the Democrats are going to throw you under the bus sooner or later on most of those issues.
And final question, where is it that people can either volunteer, um, donate to your campaign, or learn more about your campaign?
Yes, they can go to my website at tedbrown.org. Real easy. You can donate there. There's a phone number and email address listed on all the pages of the website. Some platform planks are in there. Bio is in there. Quotes that I like are in there. You can follow me on X, Twitter at Ted Brown Liberty, and look for me on Facebook at Ted Brown or Libertarian for U.S. Senator from Texas. And those are all places where you can either see what's going on with the campaign or with my views and find a way to contact me.
Thank you so much for being on this show. I greatly appreciate it. To everyone who
Thanks so
has
much for
known,
having me.
oh, you're welcome. I've been gone for the past couple of Thursdays. You all know why. Um, I am so sorry. I have this terrible cough. Continue to like this. Remember to like this page, like this specific broadcast. Share it on your platforms. We cannot reach our 300 subscribers unless we get people to share this podcast. We need our 300. We're striving for it. Please subscribe. Please contribute on Patreon. I don't know when I will be doing an interview next because I'm still not able to find someone that can make this time, but that's okay. I'm still going to do the Tracy Show, the Thursday edition, because I still believe until we vote different, we're not going to get anything different. And it's time to say goodbye to the duopoly. So don't fear voting for something different. Be encouraged, stay in the fight, and have a good evening. I will see you all on Saturday. Have a great evening.